Hi, my name is Craig Barnes. I'm a student of Bruce Francis, and I'm also a teacher of Dragon and Tiger Qigong. And I wanted to put this video together mainly for people who are out there practicing or have learned Dragon and Tiger, who want to practice it and how to maximize its benefit for dealing with some of the issues around the coronavirus. Now, as I'm sure you know, the coronavirus, it's mainly a disease that's, the virus is affecting the lungs. It often starts in the throat, and when it goes deep into the lungs, it can have more serious effects on the body. So the theory is that if you can keep the lungs open and keep the lungs from contracting and getting tight, then the virus hopefully won't have a serious effect on you. So we're going to start with something very simple, which is getting the muscles around the spine to get loose, right? And especially, and this is true even if you have any kind of pneumonia, other infection, very often that area starts to tighten up. And if you can get that area loose, then I think it will provide you some protection. So in terms of Dragon and Tiger, how do you do that? There's two directions that you want to think about, right? If you have the spine, let me grab this pull cue stick and pretend that it's the spine. And if you have the spine and then you have these muscles along the back, right? There's two directions basically that you want to start to move those muscles. One is this up and down movement, and the other is away from the spine and back. If you basically get those two motions happening smoothly, then it will free up the spine and do what you want it to do also for the lungs in front of which are right in front of this area of the body in the upper back. So I'm going to stand up and we'll start out talking about just the first movement of Dragon and Tiger, right? The first movement, basically, your hands are moving up and down the body, right? And you're going to try to get the movement of the hands to start affecting that area in the spine. So the trick to really engaging the arms with that tissue in the back is to get the elbow extended out in front of the body a little bit. If you're doing movement one and you just have the hands moving up and down in a soft way, right, you can have a sense of moving energy, but if you engage this wrapping a little bit so that the elbows extend out and then try to start to feel, right, as you're coming up the body, that as the hand comes up, you're trying to feel and move that tissue along the spine so that tissue is rising up to the neck, and then as your hand turns over and moves down, right? Not the hand gets the arm gets floppy, but the hand stays out in front, and you're going to try to get this downward motion to cause an effect. So if you can stand up and try that, we can practice that together for a second, right? In movement number one, right? Just one hand, starting with one hand, right? As the heel comes off the ground and the arm moves up, you're trying to feel that tissue moving along the spine, and then turn over and move down, right? And the other side, the hand comes up the body, you're trying to find a way to get the elbow extended so that there's no slack between the elbow and the spine, and then as the hand rises, you're trying to feel something move up the body, right? Up that area between the spine and the shoulder blade, and even from the bottom, all those muscles along the spine. Once you have that sense, you can try with both. One going up, then the hand turning over at the top, and then coming down. Now, you want to have the arms extended. You don't want to have it too tight so it's causing a contraction in your body. You're trying to loosen the body. And hopefully that motion up and down the spine will start to cause it to loosen a little bit. So that's one direction, this up and down. Right? Where else do you see this? Clearly in movement number 6, right? Similar to number one, you're coming up and down the channels, the hand comes over the head, and when you release here, right? As the hand comes up, again, you're going to want to feel that motion along the spine, but try to have it extend all the way up the neck till you get to the top of the head and release. And then coming down the same way. And the more you can have this continuous engagement of that tissue, the better, the more effective it will be. Okay? So that's up and down. The other issue, like I mentioned before, is from the spine, away from the spine, back to the spine. You want to get the tissue to be engaged and move in that way as well. And where's that done most clearly? In movement number 3, right? In movement number 3, right, as you're going up and down the legs, your hands are moving away from the body, right? You can take the hands and move them away without really engaging the back and engaging that tissue. So again, you're going to try to get this little bit of extension with the elbows and extend the arms and draw them back in. And you want to start to get that sense of from the spine that tissue around on either side of it is being moved. And you're going to try to have that movement be smooth and continuous. So the hands are coming out and in, right? So movement number 3, where are you doing that? The hands go around the legs. Here, as the hands go down the body, you're going to try to get that extension, that length away from the spine and drawing back in, right? There's another part of movement number 3, which is the hands coming around the body and back. So again, the shoulder blades moving towards the spine and all of that tissue squishing in towards the spine and then extending away. You can try to get that wrapping in the body to cause that tissue. And this will be your focus. And if you're teaching, for those of you who are teaching, if you're teaching people the set at this time, this is some of the stuff you might want to focus on. So you have that wrapping, back squishing towards the spine, and then from the spine wrap coming back around the body, and the shoulder blades rounding away from the spine. And then down, and again, extending those shoulders, elbows, hands away to engage that tissue, right? Where else in the form is this, right? Someplace that you might not think of, but in movement number 2, right? You're going to turn to the side and flick. Instead of just turning and flicking, you can make sure that the elbows again are pulling out of the body to engage that tissue and get it to move, right? So your hands at the center, the shoulders nest, turn to the side, and as the hands are turning over and forming the beak, draw the elbows out, really focus on that tissue in the back, and then flick. And ideally, if you've gotten and engaged that tissue and got it moving in a smooth and soft way, then when you flick, it's going to even get that area to just release a little bit more. This principle applies to all the movements in the set, right? So we have 1, 2, 3. We'll come back to movement 4 in a second, but we have number 5, right, where you're coming up, drawing around the body, and releasing downwards. Again, like in movement number 3, wrapping, engaging that tissue around the spine. Back as you come to a beak, and release, right? Release, draw back in. So you have this back and forth in movement number 5 as well, right? Number 6, like I mentioned, is mainly focusing on that up and down movement along the spine. And number 7 is kind of a mix. You have the up and down, and the turning of your body also is creating this lateral movement, which is opening up that tissue front to back as well as up to down. Okay, so number 7, you're still having this extension, you're coming up to the top of the spine and out, but you're also having this wrapping, coming one direction, wrapping back towards the spine, forward and release. Okay, so I said number 4, and the reason I'm saving that for last is because really number 4 is probably the movement that really most affects the lungs. You're working in this area, right? The hands are moving back and forth, but remember, you're trying to get instead of everything coming back and forth to the spine, everything, if the spine's in the middle, everything moving, one moving towards the spine, one moving away, the other moving towards the spine, the other moving away. So as my right hand extends out, the shoulder blade's moving away, you're engaging that tissue, and as the other shoulder blade's moving in, you're squishing that tissue a little bit towards the spine. So you're trying to get that smooth, even, and not only just moving that area, but you're trying to get it to relax and go easy. And that tissue releasing, it's going to also loosen and release the spine in general. But it's that area, particularly right in the torso, behind the ribs, in the back of the ribs. That's right, the back side of the lungs. If you're getting that area to open up, it's very good for the heart also and the lungs. There's something else, number 4, right? In addition to just this physical motion of getting that tissue to move and get soft, right? Again, you're focusing on, in this move, drawing energy in and trying to get this transfer of energy through the body, so through that whole torso area of the heart and lungs and out to the other side. And that energy movement will also strengthen the lungs in a very strong way. There's one other thing, movement 4, but in all of the motions, it's that tissue around the outside, but you also want to have the sense of the rib cage in general, sort of getting flexible and having some movement in it so it doesn't get stuck, right? What you don't want is your torso to collapse and hold on. That makes it harder to breathe, and it makes it harder for your lungs to be engaged, right? So having said that, there's one other big part of Dragon and Tiger that's also I wanted to talk about, which is the breathing, right? And for those of you who haven't done the Taoist breathing as a separate course, I would highly recommend it. But you should have learned at least in a simple way that your breath is going into your belly, but also this area in the diaphragm, that as you're breathing, it's engaged, it's moving up and down. And the more you can get this breathing to become full, then it moves everything in your lungs, so things don't get stagnant and stuck in there, right? So ideally, you have the sense of the diaphragm breathing up and in and out through the whole set, but also the belly, the sides, the lower back, and if you're really doing this well, having this sense of the breath going into the upper back as well. There's lots of things you can focus on in Dragon Tiger, but if you've learned that in these times, if you're teaching it, you might want to focus a little bit more on that breathing aspect of it. And we can just do that for a minute for starters, right? And you can start out standing or sitting as you wish, but get the breath going. Get the diaphragm start to move. Let the breath become smooth and even. And with your hands on your lower back, Get the breath in the back smooth and even. So ideally, without having the chest move, you're going to try to have the breath going into the upper back. And like I said, this is really, the breathing is its own course, but it goes inside of Dragon and Tiger. And if you know the breathing, if you know the Dragon Tiger moves, you can really focus on it and it will be very helpful. And we can start out now at the beginning of the set. Right, so we'll start out with the stirring motion. Right, so if you just get into whatever light posture, slight bend in the knees, feet flat on the floor that you might be in when you're practicing Dragon Tiger, relax the body. We already have the breath going. And for starters now, try to get the breath and the hands moving together as you start the stirring motion. Now you get the idea. You may take some time to practice just this, to get the breath and the arms moving together. So you're really practicing the breathing as you're doing the set. And we're going to look at something else. Right now I'm doing this light stirring. But if you really want to, again, engage those muscles in the back, you can make a little bit of a more exaggerated motion where you're bringing the shoulder blades together, wrapping them around, and really getting this whole area across through the collarbones, in the upper back, and start to get the sense of this area around the ribs moving. So you can forget some of the other stuff that you might be doing in stirring, but you might want to really try to engage that tissue. And engage that tissue, and if you can, have that breathing in and out of the breath happening at the same time. And while we're practicing this, for a minute, I just wanted to talk about a couple of other things. In addition to this purely physical stuff, really, physical or even energetic, Dragon and Tiger, it's a deep exercise and it can do other things as well. One of the real powerful things about it is it has the ability, in addition to just the physical and just like the smooth movement releasing stress, there are ways that you can practice also that can have a strong effect on your mental state, your emotional state, your mood, and that can be a very powerful thing. One thing, and switch directions anytime you need to. One of the things that's happening is around the world in different places to different degrees, but people are being told to stay at home. And that may last for a short time, maybe a little bit longer, who knows at this point. But when people have to stay home and the things happening, that can affect your emotional state. One of the things that happens is people can get anxiety and have a sense of panicking, right? Now, when you start having that sense of panic, if you know that you have that sense of panic or you're working with people who have it, the first thing is to try to have this smooth, even, regular motion, right? Instead of this panic, right? Getting the energy, the body, to have this smooth, even, flowing rhythm really can ameliorate a lot of that kind of issue. So that can start in the stirring, and then the first move, if we start doing the first move, again, the focus will want to be even, smooth motion. To try to start to balance yourself out. So just do a few moves of number one and focus on trying to have this smooth evenness. And if you can, still moving up the spine on one side and down the spine on the other. The other thing about panic, a lot of it is involved with not being present to the present moment, right? It's about thinking, what's going to happen, right? Oh no, what if this happens? What if that happens? And having your mind engaged in that, right, pull you off center. So we're going to shift into movement number two now. And again, start out smooth and even, but you want to start to have a sense when you do these flicks in the motion, if you're dealing with panic, to, at that moment of the flick, release your mind. That you have this sense of, right, I'm worried about this, whatever, and then at that moment of the flick, let go. Have your mind release that sense of thinking about the future, release the future, and land in the present moment. And then smooth, even release. So you keep coming back to this moment of, where am I here? Sometimes that's difficult to do when you're just in that panic mode, but if you're in the flow of the set, then it's something that's possible to do, right? So movement number two, as we're doing it. And the same thing in all the other moves later on when you flick. Particular movement number 6 is very good for that as well. Okay, let's do one more flick, number 2. Bring the hands in, and we'll go into movement number 3. So step forward or backwards, however you do it. And again, 3 again is this smooth and even motion. The other thing you want to think about, right? All right, if you're in this panic, fear about the future, anxiety, this kind of thing, one of the things you want to really focus on, and movement 3 is really good for this, is both feeding and clearing the kidneys. So when you bring the hands around, really try to feel, get your hands connected in and nourish your kidneys. Then take the energy from there around, right? Anything that's stagnant in there, move it down the body. Back around. Pull anything that's stagnant around and move it down your legs, down into the floor. Switch legs. Release, and as you come back, you can draw energy up your body. As your hands come around, let your hands go around, back to the Mingmen, bring your energy there, which that point in the back of the spine is very connected to the kidneys. So bringing energy to that spot, getting this channel from the Dandian to the Mingmen is really nourishing for the kidneys. And pulling out any stagnant energy in the lower back, moving it down the body. And then bring the feet together. Wrap around. And we'll go into movement number 4. Bring the hands up, out, and again, physically moving the spine, the shoulder blade towards the spine on one side, away from the spine the other, getting that tissue in the back to loosen and soften up. There's one other issue that you can, that I thought would be useful to talk about in these times, is that people who are stuck at home, right? Sometimes you start to feel powerless. It's like, what can I do to help people, especially if you're not going out, you're just stuck at home. You can feel this sense of helplessness. And one thing you can do is, first of all, just getting your own energy to smooth out, getting your own mind, you're stable and even, that will be good for the world. At least that's my belief, right? That there's the ability, whatever vibe you're putting out, it goes out into the world. People pick up on that, and that can spread. So if you have this, you get yourself to be calm, you can have a calming influence on others. So first thing you want to do is get yourself to become smooth, calm, even. And then from there, in this move, if you want also, you can think about if there are other people out there suffering and you want to help them in whatever way you can from your, right, as you're bringing this energy into your heart, as your heart opens up and you release, you can have a sense of however you can do it, thinking about having good intentions, right? That may sound a little airy-fairy, but I think if you practice that, sending your good intentions to help heal other people, you might be able to do that you might be able to spread something out to them, and it will also in your own mind can give you a sense that you're not just sitting there being helpless, that you're trying to do something. Right? Of course, if you want to get out and do some shopping, help other people as you can, that's fine. Shopping for others. But while you're doing this practice, you can develop that sense of trying to ease other people's suffering. All right? So number 4, and coming up and down the body for number 5. Release, smooth and even. The last thing I wanted to talk about that might become an issue, especially if this pandemic continues and lasts for a long time, if people are stuck in the house for a long time, that can lead to depression, right? If you start to have this kind of depression, one of the things you really want to focus on is releasing stagnant energy in a more stronger way, right? In which case you would really focus a little bit more on the flicking and put a little bit more oomph into them. If you put a little more oomph in them, then whatever's stuck in the body releases in a stronger way. So if you were dealing with depression, or if you're working with someone with depression, you're not going to want to flick in such a way that you're putting strain or tension into your body, but you're going to emphasize and put a little bit more flick right through. Okay? So one more, number 5, sorry, stop in the middle. And number 6. And again, up one side of the spine, down the other. And like I was saying in number 2, number 6 is a really good place to, as you release, have a sense of landing in the present. whatever you're thinking about, whatever the future, this, that, the other. Release it at the moment of your flick. And let's bring the hands into the belly and just do a few movement sevens. Same thing. Release. Draw the hands into the belly. Turn. Release. Breathe in the belly. Bring the hands back. And at the end, as always, when you finish a set, let everything go easy and smooth. All right. Now, in your own practice, we just did a little bit of practice together, but in your own practice at home, you don't have to do all of those things. You can pick out whichever one of those things seems like it would be useful for you personally, or if you're teaching, if you're working with someone, right? I know a bunch of people now who are students of Bruce's or students of one of his students who are out there teaching themselves. So I've talked to a number of people who are starting to do kind of Skype lessons and things like this. And if you're still working with people, then these are some of the things you might want to work with them on. So anyway, I hope you found this helpful, and I hope everyone stays well, and thank you very much for watching. I wanted to thank Bruce Francis. Everything that I learned in Dragon Tiger, I learned directly from him, who spent a lot of time in China studying and learning this material. When I told him I wanted to shoot this video, he graciously offered to give me advice and his recommendations about what would be useful for people to learn. So thank you to Bruce Francis.